Welcome back to the PP Zone. This is your host, Mike.
This time, we take a look at some lesser-known qualities of American presidents, namely that at least some of them were owners of some really great guns. It's a fact that in a long history of America, a lot of presidents were hunters. They left behind a lot of thoughts on that matter, and of course, the weapon they used. Thomas Jefferson, for example, thought that guns were the best to exercise the body and mind. With them, you learn to be bold and independent, while ball games are just too violent on the body while giving nothing to the mind. With that idea, let's turn our attention to the rifles and shotguns they used. The Winchester Model 21 of George H.W. Bush. President George H.W. Bush loved to hunt quail. In 1990, he took a 16-gauge Winchester Model 21. He sent it to Roger M. Greene for a complete makeover, including having it made for left-handed shooting. Greene remade his gun using California walnut for the stock and then had it engraved. Also, he had an oak and leather case made for it by Marvin Huey. After that, he himself went to the White House to present his work to the president. The Ruger Red Label of Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter taught in Sunday school, he built houses with Habitat for Humanity, and he loved hunting. Even in his 90s, he shot himself some turkey. His passion was quail hunting and owned quite a variety of guns. One of them, the Ruger Red Label Over Under, is mentioned in his essay collection, An Outdoor Journal. He also wrote a letter to William Ruger. In it, he thanked him for his help when ordering a pair of these guns. One he kept for himself, and the other he presented the Vice President, Walter Mondale. The Winchester and Weatherby of Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson had a ranch in Texas, which he loved. Every year he would go there when deer season opened. Then he had his chrome-plated .30-30 Winchester rifle with him at all times. He invited other people, and together they hunted from the car. Johnson also hunted hogs and aoudad. One time he brought John Kennedy to his ranch. According to him, Kennedy liked it a lot. According to Kennedy, he rather hated it instead of enjoying it. However, in the end, he did hang a mount in the White House that he was given by Johnson. On another occasion, Johnson presented a classic Weatherby rifle to George Reedy, the then press secretary. It was chambered in .300 Winchester Magnum. It was decorated and engraved with Reedy's name. The Model 21 of Dwight Eisenhower. It was a Winchester Model 21 shotgun in 20 gauge that was the favorite field gun of Eisenhower. He loved fishing, hunting, and shooting. Had streams stoked with trout, so he had something to fish when he arrived, and had a skeet field built right at Camp David. Being fond of hunting birds, he owned several shotguns, but his favorite was a Winchester Model 21. It had a straight grip and came in 20 gauge. The receiver is worn as it was used for many hours in the field. The receiver shows a gold pheasant inlaid on one side. On the other, there is a gold grouse. On the floor plate, there are 5 stars, and on the trigger guard, one can read DDE. On the stock medallion, there's an engraving, "To a straight shooter from a friend." It was given to him as a present by Robert Woodruff, the president of Coca-Cola. The Remington Model 141 of Harry S. Truman. Truman hunted already as a boy growing up in rural Missouri. He followed his parents, who both liked hunting very much. 1937, there was a famous picture of then-Senator Harry S. Truman taken. In it, he was holding a Remington Model 141 while he was on a deer hunt. This started his famous catchphrase, "The buck stops here." Actually, he did not say that. Instead, there was a "Buck Stops Here" sign sitting innocently on the desk of a warden at the El Reno Federal Reformatory in Oklahoma. This sign came to the attention of a friend of Truman's, who then had one made for the president and mailed it to him in 1945. The Grant and Sons double of Franklin D. Roosevelt. FDR was a hunter and owned many weapons. When he was president, he took care of nature and formed the CCC, the Civilian Conservative Corps. Its work was to plant trees and reserve the soil damage in the area of the Dust Bowl. 1921, polio changed the life of FDR. An active sportsman, enjoyed riding, sailing, golfing, hunting, and shooting. He was almost unable to walk. He continued to own several handguns and shot them as well. He gave away a pair of Grant and Sons doubles that were made in 1890. One of them he handed to General Walter Bedell Smith, who was the president's chief of staff at that time. Smith had the barrel shortened to 26 inches, and there's an oval inset on the stock. On it, one can read that this gun was presented by President Franklin D. Roosevelt to General Bedell Smith. The Winchester Model 94 of Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge was given this rifle by Winchester as a Christmas present on December 25th, 1927. It was the production number 1,000,000 of the model 1894. Coolidge himself was a hunter and shooter for his whole life. He became president when he was the vice president to take over the office after the death of President Warren Harding. In 1924, he was reelected. The Fox of Theodore Roosevelt. In the year 2010, the Fox of Theodore Roosevelt was sold for $862,000. This price speaks for itself. Behind it stands the story of a sickly child that overcame his past by jumping into a vigorous life. Part of it was the sport of hunting. Roosevelt saw it as the best pastime that cultivates manliness, a trait that cannot be replaced by any other quality. Besides being an avid hunter, he was also a rather poor shot, but he made up for it by shooting very often, as he used to explain himself. For his safari in Africa, which would take 9 months, he was given a 12-gauge shotgun by the A.H. Fox Company. He thanked Ansley Fox in a letter expressing his regret to use such a wonderful piece in such a rough environment. He described it after the trip as the best gun ever made. Fox quoted him on that and was very successful selling his guns for years to come. The 8-bore Colt shotgun of Grover Cleveland. It was a massive piece with a Bachlock made for a massive president. In fact, Grover Cleveland weighed 275 pounds and was the second heaviest president of the USA. His nieces and nephews used to call him Uncle Jumbo. His shotgun, being equally jumbo, suited him. His name can be found on the trigger guard inlaid in gold. At his time, using an 8-bore to hunt birds was still legal. It was never really popular, so not many cried a tear when the Migratory Bird Treaty Act made it illegal. Signed 10 years after the Cleveland's passing, it allowed only 10-gauge or smaller shotguns to be used. The Berdan Rifle of Abraham Lincoln. In 1863, Hiram Berdan, an officer of the Army, made a rifle for Abraham Lincoln. What makes this gun so special is its hammer. Its shape is modeled after Lincoln's head. It's not only a piece of art, but also the reason why Lincoln made this list even while he was not a hunter. He grew up in difficult circumstances. His mother passed away when he was still young, and his father tried to feed the family. For that, he went farming and hunting. For the latter, he took young Lincoln with him at the age of 8 and traumatized him by killing a turkey. This led this president of the USA to never hunt again. While thoroughly disinterested in hunting, Lincoln did develop an interest in weapons. This was especially true during the time of the Civil War. He also shot a Spencer repeating rifle on the lawn of the White House. Hiram Berdan, who made the rifle with the hammer shaped like the president's head, was himself a sharpshooter and also an inventor. He gave this rifle to him as a token of his gratitude. Lincoln insisted on the shoulders in Berdan's unit to be equipped with the Spencer repeater instead of the muzzle loaders. The Army at that time wanted to use the old guns in order to avoid a wastage of ammo. The rifle was made for .44 caliber rounds and was ready in 1863. However, Berdan could not deliver it to the president before he was assassinated. The Fowler of George Washington. The first president of the USA loved fox hunting, but also fowling. For that he used a Fowler, made by Richard Wilson of London about 1750. It was inherited by the executor of his estate, but it was not his only gun. In the year 1767, he also ordered a Fowler for his stepson, John Parke Curtis, at the age of 14, and later ordered at least another one for himself. There you have it, guys. If you enjoyed watching this video, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get a notification when a new video comes out. See you next time. See you.